So, the first technique we're going to talk about in this live stream is thinking about how to capture unexpected moments. Now, unexpected moments are one of the best parts of street photography. Now, one of my favorite kind of feelings about photography is when you get up in the morning and you're about to go out and you don't know what you're going to find on that day. And that's kind of the beauty of street photography, of reportage photography, and even, like I said, photojournalism, is that we're trying to capture images in a way that are very natural and spontaneous. And so, for the most part, there's no way to predict many of these situations that are going to happen. And that's, like I said, the beautiful part of this type of photography. Now, it also presents obviously lots of challenges because these situations are hard to predict, they're hard to capture, but that's the beauty of street photography, is that when you capture those unexpected moments, when you actually find that unique moment that you could maybe never have even thought about or imagined, and you capture it and you get back to your home or the hotel at the end of the day, and you're looking at those images and you find that one image that you captured that you could never have imagined of. That is one of the really special moments and feelings when doing street photography. And for me, that feeling is what it's all about. And it's those unexpected moments that you could never have predicted that you would find. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to look at a few examples of those type of images that I've captured and just talk a little bit more about some of the ways in which I captured those scenes and what I was thinking when I was taking those pictures. Now, in this image, I was actually shooting in a very small country called Tuvalu. And some of you might be familiar with this story because I talk about it a lot. It's one of the stories that I covered in relation to climate change issues. And Tuvalu has a problem with flooding as a result of climate change. And so, as part of that story, I was out in the communities in Tuvalu just doing general street photography, trying to capture different scenes that showed what was happening to the people of Tuvalu. And one day I was out near sunset and I saw these people playing volleyball. And what I noticed was, as I was walking around the scene, I was just kind of scoping the scene, looking at the light, looking at where people were positioned, which is what I typically do when out doing street photography. I very rarely jump into a situation and start taking pictures immediately. I'll normally look at the situation, assess the light, have a look at what I might be able to do with composition, and just start to take pictures. And even if those initial pictures aren't the best, I'm starting that process of taking pictures and I'm starting to experiment. I'm starting to change my angle, look for those moments, look for something a little bit different. And in this situation, the first thing that I noticed, apart from the people playing volleyball, was this huge flooded area nearby. It was a huge puddle that had been flooded. And so I thought, a puddle. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll know that puddles, when I see them, I'm always thinking reflections. And reflections are a great way to make your images more interesting and compelling and to make your compositions a bit more interesting too. So I decided to get low here. I got my camera almost down to the level of the water. And then with one eye, I was looking at the background, obviously keeping an eye on these people playing volleyball, and then waiting for one of them to jump. And I tried to position the camera so I captured the reflection at that moment. Now, these people didn't really know what I was doing. They were engrossed in their volleyball game. So they weren't paying any attention to me, which was perfect for me as a street photographer, as a photojournalist, because I was trying to capture it very naturally. So they were just playing, which gave me lots of time to get my shot set up and wait for that moment. Now here, this image was taken in India, and this was on the banks of the Ganges River in Kolkata. And again, I was in the city just making images, trying to tell the story about um, environmental issues in India. And so I was walking along the banks of the river, and I just noticed these men bathing in the river. And so I thought, okay, this could be an interesting shot. So again, I just started to make a couple of pictures, and it was kind of working. It was kind of interesting, but it wasn't very, very special. But I was patient. I took my time. I just kind of waited. I just watched what the men were doing. They were the three of them together, just stood side by side in the shallow. So I thought, I know there's a picture here somewhere. So I just kept waiting. And then I noticed that there were some birds flying around on the banks of the river. And I noticed that one or two of them kept flying into the frame. And so I thought, well, if I get lucky here, I might be able to capture this scene with the men bathing and get a bird in the frame at the same time. So I did the easy part. I framed the picture with the men in the foreground first, and then I waited until the bird came into the frame. Took some pictures. To be honest, I can't remember how many pictures I took in this situation, but I'm guessing I took quite a few, because these fleeting moments, they're very hard to capture. So photojournalists or professional photographers don't always just go out and take one amazing shot. There are normally a lot of photos that you never ever see that just end up on their hard drives of all the misses. So it's kind of like a baseball player. They have a ratio of hits to misses. I think photographers have a very similar kind of ratio of hits to misses. And this was one of my hits. But the thing that I want to share with you is that there are lots of misses. However, you've got to be in that situation and you've got to be ready to make that hit, to make that strike, if we continue the baseball reference. But you've got to be ready and you've got to be in the position and anticipate the moment for when it is about to happen. And unexpected moments can come from many different sources. This image was taken in London during celebrations for Diwali. And I happened to be in Trafalgar Square in central London, and I came across these celebrations. And I thought that, wow, this could be really an amazing, colorful event. It could be really interesting in terms of moments. So I kind of blended myself into the crowd, and I just tried to capture some of these really interesting and natural moments. And these people were reaching out, trying to, I think there was someone in one of the hosts was throwing things to the guests or to the people watching. And I thought, wow, this is a great moment as they all reach out their hands. And I was there right in the crowd. No one was paying attention to me. And I was able to capture this really natural shot. This image was taken in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. And it's a very, very simple scene. And it would almost go completely unnoticed. But sometimes with street photography, the simplest of moments can be really powerful pictures. And sometimes you can be in what might be a seemingly dull or boring situation. You might think there's nothing happening here, but suddenly, just one moment, like these two nuns walking past me holding hands, just that very simple moment might make for a beautiful photograph. So even if you find yourself in a situation that you think, well, there's nothing really happening here, there's nothing very exciting happening, be patient. Look for those little moments in life. Something as simple as two people holding hands, something maybe, a couple in love who just turn and kiss one another, just in that briefest of moments. It could be any little moments like this that sometimes they appear out of nowhere, and they appear in some of the places that you would never think anything's going to happen. But you just need to stay really aware of what people are doing, watch people, try to anticipate moments, and be ready with your camera to capture those unexpected moments. So my three main tips for capturing unexpected moments are: you need to become a professional people watcher. So you have to become really obsessed with people, obsessed with how people move in public spaces. Look at what people are doing. Think where they might go. Like if a person is walking into your frame, where will they be in your frame in a couple of seconds? Anticipate what people might do. Anticipate emotions. A couple together might share that kiss, or a couple of friends might laugh at a joke. You can anticipate those if you watch people carefully enough. That my second point, anticipate those moments before they happen if you can. And finally, be ready at all times to capture that moment. So be ready with your camera. Take your lens cap off, have your settings set up already, anticipate the kind of settings that you might need, and just be ready at all times to be able to react in that moment to get the picture. Okay, let's go on to your first comments and questions. I'm just going to open up the comments here and see who we have tuning in. Okay, we've got Jean Boyd tuning in from Iowa in the USA. Hi, Jean. Thanks for joining me today. Who else do we have? We have Liam in Germany. Thanks for joining, Liam. Okay, we've got USA and Germany so far. And we have Kaj Stemmen. Okay, born in Finland, lives in Sweden, and now watching from Spain. Okay, that's quite a resume, quite a background. Kaj, thanks for joining us. Okay, and who else do we have? Okay, we've got Uday joining us. Hi, nice to see you again, Uday. Thanks for joining this stream as well. Okay, one more of people who's joining us today. We've got Hugo joining from Brazil. Wow, thanks everyone for joining in on the live stream today. I'm just going to go through to one of the questions that came through on YouTube. Let's bring this up. Okay, so this question was from Rose Marie David. I hope I got that right. And Rose asked, hi, great video. Thank you. I'm super anxious about getting off auto. What setting do you recommend for street photography? Or is the composition more important than worrying about going manual? That's a good question. Now, many on my channel will know that I don't really talk too much about the camera itself and settings and giving you advice from the technical standpoint. Much of my work and my philosophy is really based around thinking about the photo. Now, of course, we need to understand our cameras. We need to know our cameras. We need to know how they work because we need to be able to, use our cameras to take those pictures that we want to capture. But for street photography, I would say don't worry about going manual. I'd say go on to some of the auto features. Now, you might want to go full auto. One of my favorite settings to use is the aperture priority. I personally like to have control of my aperture. It's almost a bit of a cliche within photography, especially photojournalism. And in terms of thinking about your depth of field to make sure that you get a good depth of field to be able to capture things within your frame. And the famous phrase is F8 and be there, because F8 gives you this nice depth of field, which allows you to capture a good depth within your photograph. So what you might want to do is, if you're not sure about settings, put it on something like aperture priority, put it on an F number like F8, put your ISO up to about 400. So it's quite sensitive to light, but it's not high enough to make your picture noisy. And so you're going to get quite a fast shutter speed, and you're going to be able to capture some of that action quite sharply and crisply. Those would be my general things. But in general, I'm always thinking about the picture. So get your settings set up to what you think might work for you, and then concentrate on the picture. Because at the end of the day, when someone's looking at your picture online or in a gallery or hung up on a wall, they don't care about what settings that you had with your camera. That's the personal thing that you need to worry about as the photographer. But when people are looking at your photographs afterwards, they don't really care about what settings that you use. It's not integral to the actual endpoint, which is that photograph that you're aiming for. So definitely think more about your composition, about the lighting, about capturing those moments. Those are all the things that you should definitely put priority on.